Today's show brought to you in partnership with our friends at TaylorMade and Medallion Racing. TaylorMade Partnerships provides an unmatched entry and experience into both the racing and breeding side of the thoroughbred industry. Now you can be a part of a top-level racing and breeding operation with all the rewards and less risk and cost. Medallion Racing has enjoyed great success through the years with 66% of starters running in graded stakes and 25% in grade ones. Last year, Medallion was fortunate enough to have an impressive 4 Breeders' Cup starters. Similarly, on the bloodstock investment side, they've discovered great value buying and selling such standouts as Improbable, Bast, Cutting Humor, and Flame Away, among others. Join us and experience the thrill with TaylorMade, your family. Check out more, TaylorMadeFarm.com. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Friday, April 15th, Good Friday. In fact, Easter weekend is upon us, and we are going to kick on with 2 guests giving us their early thoughts on the 2 huge races coming up now in just a few weeks' time. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you, not in the Brooklyn bunker, but at the I don't know what this is. It's the Cummings Estate in Lexington, Kentucky. And I am very happy to be joined by a guy who has proved very popular in his appearances on the In the Money Media Network over the last year or so. We've had him on for our live events, and we're going to have him on regularly now throughout the summer. A lot of times taking a look at the filly and mare division, which he knows inside and out because of his job as a racing manager with Medallion Racing, who we're proud to partner with. You heard their spot a little bit earlier. Anyway, great to have back with us, Philip Shelton. How are things?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. Doing good. Just getting ready for a big weekend with in due time, hoping to add his hat into the ring for the Derby. So we're looking forward to it on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a minute, and then we'll talk about him in another segment, in another video, or later on in the show, depending on where you're watching this. We'll have Eric Solomon join us, and then got some other great content as well going to be coming up later on. But very happy to kick off this week's show, as we do so often. Not doing the stakes roundup this week, doing something a little bit more general with the man from his own eponymous podcast, TV's, Matt Bernier. Matt, how are things?
Good, Pete. Phil, good to be chatting with you as well. And like you say, typically we do a little bit of a stakes roundup leading into the weekend, but not to downplay the 2 big ones at Keeneland on Saturday. A little bit of a quieter week than what we've had in the past few weekends. So good time to kind of give a 30,000 feet kind of view of things.
The calm before the storm. And of course, regular viewers and listeners to Matt's show are going to be pretty familiar with his thoughts. We'll get a précis of them here. We encourage folks to check out the Matt Bernier show, obviously, and you'll get a whole lot more and be able to go a whole lot deeper. And it's going to be real easy to bounce around from these shows to Matt's shows if you are watching on YouTube. But Matt, what are your thoughts as it stands now? Do you have your Derby horse picked out? Do you have a potential strategy as far as the Kentucky Derby goes?
Yeah, and you know what? It's probably not the most interesting one, but if you recall going back to, it must have been before the Lecomte, I said if the Derby were run on Saturday, I would pick Epicenter, and not a lot has changed since then. I just think he's the complete package. He may not be the flashiest thing you've ever seen, but I love his versatility. He can go to the lead. He can sit just off. He's run as fast, if not faster, than anyone else in his generation. And that's, I guess it depends what kind of figures you want to use, but I think it's at least arguable that he is one of the fastest, if not the fastest. And I think he's in the right hands with Steve Asmussen and presumably Joel Rosario going to be taking that mount. So I think Epicenter is the horse to beat. The only other one, and I said it last week on the Triple Cast when we did the shows, I was down at Aqueduct. I said, I think barring something crazy happening, I thought the Derby winner was coming out of the Risen Star. I said that last week on this show as well. And we saw those 2 horses run 1 and 2 down at Keeneland. I thought they were both very impressive. But barring something crazy happening, well, I don't know if it's too much too soon, but something kind of crazy happened in California with Taba. And there's a part of me that does genuinely believe he may be a Justify level, American Pharoah level kind of talent. The question is, is 6 to 10 in a matter of 8 weeks just just a bit too much to ask. I hope the horse is going to be all right. But if for whatever reason he's good to go, he is absolutely one of the horses to beat the first Saturday in May.
Philip, we're going to bring you in, and we're going to start not with the general big picture question, but with a very specific question about a horse you mentioned before in Due Time. Will be running this weekend. I just want to hear a little bit about how you guys got involved with this horse. Anything you can tell us about what he's been doing and what the thought process is on him from here for Medallion and your partners over at Edge Racing.
Yeah, the big thing for us is that we almost exclusively have fillies. It's just a very weird kind of thing, but a bunch of our partners have expressed interest and said, hey, if the right colt came along, we would love to do it. We bought a 2-year-old last year named Vodka and Water, who we ended up having a bunch of fun with over the summer. That was a way different level than this. They're like, oh, a Derby dream. And I just tell them, I'm like, hey, normally the price, what you think is an aggressive price is actually completely non-realistic in getting anything done. So normally you get priced out on any of these things. A lot of that is their stallion potential, et cetera. But once he won his race at Gulfstream, when he won the one-turn allowance, and everybody had been kind of pumping up the Pletcher horse in there, Ironworks, and I think maybe even had 2 in there. And it came back fast on a buyer number, came back fast on a sheet number. We have a relationship with Edge is a part of my racehorse. They just sell larger pieces as opposed to the fractional shares. But we own Going to Vegas with them. We own Street Band with them. We have a relationship. And we had tried to buy a couple of other Derby horses for a couple of other clients. So we kind of knew what the market was. And we just think we hit a sweet spot where it was a good deal for them. They got to pare down some of their guys got to take money off the table. We got to buy it at what, felt like wasn't just an astronomical price at which the only way we'd ever make money is if he wins the Derby. And what I tell everybody, I said, in that case, just follow the horse and bet like 15 or 20 grand to win on him, because you're not going to dilute your odds in the Derby. And if you lose 20 grand. And if you win, you might win 500,000 or 600,000. Instead, you're not losing, million plus by buying the whole horse. But it just worked out. He ran huge in the Fountain of Youth. We just decided long-term for the horse. We'd asked him to do a lot. We first started round 2 turns against graded stake horses, ran really well. We just wanted to give him a little bit more time. I think we were between the Bluegrass, the Wood, and the Lexington. Ultimately, the lack of Tex Sutton, you have to van from Florida to New York, or you have to fly to Memphis, offload. Just the shipping to the Wood was just not a great plan for us. And I think Kelly's kind of at this time of year, Aqueduct, I don't know if it's the best service that he wanted to run him on. He felt like he would handle Keeneland better. And ultimately we just defer to Kelly. We're happy to voice our opinion, but he's got to make the final decision. But he's been doing really good at Keeneland. I think that the big thing is just he's got the natural speed to sit close. So we're drawn in 2 on Saturday in an 11-horse field. He's going to have to be in a pretty good position. You don't want to get shuffled back, and it's just going to be can he get a split, and hopefully Paco doesn't create the split out of nowhere.
Let's talk about the bigger picture of the Derby scene. You're going to be part of that Final Answer show. We're going to be streaming it live on May 4th. There may be an opportunity for some people to attend that if you're here in or around the Lexington area as well. So that'll be the final answer. This is your first answer. From this far out, your own horse accepted. Where are your eyes drawn for this year's Kentucky Derby, Philip?
I've got multiple future pool bets on Epicenter. So selfishly, and that's even somewhat selfish because we stand the sire. He's by Not This Time, who also is in Due Time. So we just paid a lot more attention, but he won the Gun Runner. He just did it like a horse that could have some serious upside potential. I think the first pool is 52 to 1 or something. So I've got, I'm not going to need to bet him on Derby Day. I'm going to have plenty of action to Epicenter. So I'll be cheering for him. I think when I look at the Derby, you have to have so many things go right. If you really take the race last year, Essential Quality was probably the best horse, and he really didn't even have that bad of a trip, and he ran 4th. He was in the clear the whole way. He's just wide. and you look at the horses that ran 1, 2, 3. When Dina Spirit was on the rail, we went gate to wire. Mandaloon saved ground the whole way, and Hot Rod Charlie saved ground the whole way. So the best horse ran fourth with really not too many things going wrong. The year before, I think, like I loved Honor AP, and I mean, he just was done. And he ended up running huge to be fourth. And you could really make a case he might have run the best race in there, but you just have to have so many things go right. And I love Zandon. Like, I think the turn of foot he showed, he doesn't have to be that far. It's like deceptive. He was sitting second in the Remsen when he arguably could have been put up to win over Mo Donegal. He just got shuffled back at Keeneland. So it's like, people are like, well, he was last. Do you really want to horse with that style? But I don't think he needs that trip. But I just think I want horses that can make their own luck, and they don't need as many things to go right. And to me, Epicenter feels like that horse. Like, he's got good tactical speed, doesn't need the lead, which I think was nice to see in the last start that he can rate a little bit. But I think he's just going to have the ability to put himself in a good spot, and you just have to hope that you draw well enough that you're not either going to have to be down on the inside where you really have to go, or be drawn super far outside where you're going to have to be more aggressive early. But to me, he's the most likely winner. I think there are a couple other horses. I think Taiba obviously is a monster. I like Zandon. I just think with the turn of foot and acceleration, and I think Pratt is the only person I think ride better than Pratt right now might be Rosario, who's going to be on Epicenter. So
let me ask you guys. I'll ask you first, Matt. Now, I think we can probably all agree that Epicenter would be the best horse with the most credentials that Steve Asmussen has taken to a race like the Kentucky Derby. But you're going to hear a lot about this stat, 0 for 22 or whatever it is with the Asmussen runners in the Derby to this point. Does it give you any pause, Matt?
Me personally, no. I mean, kind of to Philip's point, I mean, it's part of the reason that I have sort of a love-hate affair with the Kentucky Derby is that I don't think the best horse always, never mind wins, has the best, gets a chance at running, simply because of luck and the way things go. So that's why for me, I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. But as far as Asmussen is concerned, I mean, it'd be one thing if it was a trainer who had never been on the biggest stage and had never won anything, of this caliber. I mean, we said it last week with on NBC. I mean, Asmussen has won everything there is to win but this race. So I'm not concerned about his ability to have a horse ready to go. I think it's just honestly a matter of time. And maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the horse that he needs. For a number of different reasons, you go through and look at some of the other horses he's had run. Gunrunner wasn't Gunrunner at that point. He was a really good horse, but he wasn't the superstar that he turned into. To me, at this point in the game, this is the most complete horse he's had as far as the classic is concerned. And again, maybe it'd be one thing if it was someone who had never been in the spotlight before. Steve's done this a few times. I'm not worried about an 0 for 22 number.
While I have you guys, I want to pivot and take a quick early look at the Kentucky Oaks, which is shaping up to be a just fantastic race with, I would say, at least 4 who in a normal year could, with their resumes, could be clear favorites in the race. Yeah. Very curious. And Matt, we'll kick it to you to start this off. Do you have a horse this far out that you like to win the race? And who do you think is going to be the favorite?
So this is the one, honestly, I'm more excited about the Oaks than the Derby. And I think there are many people that kind of fall in this category as well. I don't have a single horse that I'm necessarily keyed in on. In a weird way, the worst thing for me that happened was Nest running the way that she did, because I had loved her. I think she actually debuted during one of our happy hours last year. Yeah. And visually, she's the kind of horse that always looked good, but she really hadn't run that fast. Yeah. And then she did what she did at Keeneland last week or 2 weeks ago. And now, sort of the magic dust is gone, because she would have been 15-1 or something like that. And now she may be vying for favoritism. So I think it's a fantastic race. The Secret Oath piece, I know many people are going to look at it and say, she is one of the horses, and she certainly is. A commenter on my show brought something up that I hadn't really considered, and maybe I'm starting to think about it more and more. I genuinely believe she has a turn of foot on dirt, which is not common. I feel like that's, it's an overused phrase, but turn of foot to me is a turf horse that quickens, not a dirt horse that just slows down slower than everybody else does. She has a burst on dirt. But somebody brought up the idea of distance with her being possibly an issue, and I hadn't really thought about it. You see Arrowgate, and you don't think it's going to be an issue. But her mom was more on the sprinty side, and when she shows that big turn, makes me wonder at a mile and an eighth, is she going to get a little bit short at the end of it? And possibly you have other horses who may be doing their best running at that point, whether it's Nest or Kathleen O or someone like that. So that would be my only trepidation with Secret Oath. But I think talent wise, I mean, the field of fillies. Honestly, it might be one of the best Oaks we've ever seen before.
Philip, when I first thought about how we were going to deploy you as a part of our content this year, I thought about the success you've had, particularly on the shows with the fillies and mares, and I was like, oh yeah, it'll be great to get Philip's early idea on who's going to win the Oaks. He's going to have a good opinion on that. So who's it going to be?
I mean, this year it's just like you guys hit on. I mean, to me, it's just how is the race going to be bet? I mean, what I would say is historically my worst performing bets of all time are in like maiden claimers and the Kentucky Derby. So in general, I don't even go crazy because I'm just like, would rather go play craps with my money and have maybe more fun and feel like I at least got to roll the dice for a while. In the Oaks, I've done them, a lot better. I mean, remember we had the show last year. I was like, Malathaat's my absolute strongest opinion of the whole year, basically. I think to me, Kathleen O is really interesting. I think there's going to be a fair amount of speed. Like Echo Zulu basically has never been headed. I mean, she was second early in her debut where she ended up winning for fun. But after that, she's basically been on the lead in all of her starts. Now, maybe she rates, but you got the filly coming from Oaklawn that got really brave, winning the fantasy. You're going to have, I don't know if like a Dare Manor is going to come. You're going to have some horses from California that are going to have speed. So to me, I would kind of agree. Like Secret Oath, I think she was on a wrong lead in the Arkansas Derby late. She got tired. Now maybe he just didn't persevere with her either, and maybe switching to Saez is going to be a better call. She was also really wide, so maybe that had a negative impact. To me, Kathleen O's been the most impressive horse I've seen so far this year from the filly division. Just some of the races she hadn't gotten the right setup. She just continued to power, and she just looks like somebody that's going to absolutely relish a mile and an eighth. The one thing I would be mildly, I think when you look at it, the Derby, you try to identify like what's the strong division, where are the best horses, and I think the filly division, it's hard to do it because they don't run like a lot of them really stay where they are, and they don't Ness went to Tampa and won the race at Tampa, then went to Keeneland. You got the horses in Fairgrounds kind of stayed at Fairgrounds, horse Oakland State. So you don't really have a great read on not a lot of commingling because normally you're less worried about points. If you're at the top, you can default to something else. I'm like mildly intrigued with Venti Valentine, one of our partners, Parkland Thoroughbreds, who's owned a bunch of horses with us. They're a partner in her. And just purely from a value perspective, like she's run a race that's fast enough. She was basically heads up with Nest and the Demoiselle last year. And I just thought, I don't think I know they weren't happy that Manny left the rail open, and I think they're switching to Gaffleone for the Oaks. She's a filly that's really better with a target. She just found herself on the lead in a mile and an eighth at Aqueduct and just kind of felt to me like a horse that just started wandering. And then the Mott filly came up the rail, who's also intriguing to me. Like these Mott fillies, they can start to get good and really take leaps and bounds. But she's a horse I'm just intrigued by because I think she's going to get a way different trip in the Oaks. Like she's going to sit off the speed, and she's at least proven that, like, if she gets that trip, she can run a race that could be fast enough. I think both time form and Byers had her a really high number. I think faster than like what Secret Oath's run this year. So she's a horse I think at a big price that's intriguing, just because I think she didn't get not there's anything wrong. Just the way the race played out last time, I think, was against her, and I think she's going to get a completely different setup on Oaks Day.
Good thoughts, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. You'll be hearing more from Philip as the Triple Crown season goes along. Again, he'll be part of that Final Answer show. Matt, you should be listening and or watching the Matt Bernier show every single week. Anything else you got coming up this weekend to plug, Matt? We find some writing from you somewhere out there?
Yeah, NBCSportsEdge.com. But I mean, I can give it away. It's part of the show. We got some stakes action coming up. The Lexington, to Philip's point, I don't think it's an easy race. And I think In Due Time is one of the most likely winners. But I think you can make a case for a lot of runners in there. My fear is that the favorites in there, whether it is In Due Time or Tawny Port, or even Pletcher's horse coming in, who I don't particularly love. I think they're going to be really, I don't want to say overbet, but they're going to be very short prices.
Yeah.
If you need a wild card in there, I think Dallas Stewart's horse is interesting. Strava. Horse is very green, ran down at the fairgrounds. They're putting blinkers on, paired up by her tops of 78. I think that one could be a little interesting. Maybe not good enough to win, but if you're looking for a try or a super, something like that, maybe underneath. And honestly, I mean, I think there could be a superstar in that Jenny Wiley. I think Shantasara could be. I think she could be boss in that filly and mare turf division as far as the East Coast runners are concerned. So we'll find out in time. Good.
Are you worried about the mile and a 16th at all?
Little bit. I mean, she certainly seems like one that wants to go a little bit farther, whether it is all the way out to a mile and 3/8, like she won out at Belmont last year. I guess the part of me looks at it and thinks if she can stay reasonably close, and it's a race that doesn't have a great deal of speed. I just think her turn of foot is legit. And Philip, and Pete, you as well. Keeneland's turf course can be kind of funny. And I just love that. I know it was over a bog last year in the QE2, but I love that she can handle the Keeneland turf. And not to say that, Regal Glory can't, or any of the other fillies and mares can't in there. But I also think too, I mean, it's worth keeping in mind. I mean, that's where the Breeders' Cup's going to be at the end of the year. And I assume they'll probably run it at, mile and 3/16 a couple of years ago. So, it'd be interesting to see. But I think from a talent standpoint, I think she might be off the charts.
We are going to go deep into this pick 5 in another video. If you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to find it fairly easily on the In the Money Media channel, where we ask you to like and subscribe, leave us a comment, whatever you want to do. We appreciate the support. Of course, it helps other people find the content we're putting out there on the channel. If you're listening to the podcast, it'll be coming up pretty much straight away. Thank you, boys. Very good catching up with you. Philip, you hang around for that other segment. Matt, we'll see you next week.
You got it, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.